The arena stretched wider than the eye could see. Its floor was rough stone, broken earth, and strange shifting sand. Sharp metal spikes glimmered in the sunlight, rising here and there like the teeth of a giant beast. Everyone called it the killing ground. It was not just a name for fear. It was the truth. This ground had swallowed warriors for centuries. Around the arena stood high walls of black stone. Behind those walls were countless voices, a sea of people gathered to watch. Different clans had come, each with their banners raised. The air carried the smell of burning oil and heavy dust. The people shouted, sang, and argued. They all wanted to see who would step onto the killing ground next. For generations, this place had been a test of courage. The bravest from each race would walk across, facing the dangers hidden under stone and sand. Many fell. Some returned broken. A rare few crossed with scars and pride. But none had ever walked it calm and unshaken. Even the greatest champions entered with trembling hearts. Now, as the gates opened with a slow grind, silence began to fall. From the shadow of the entryway stepped a figure unlike the rest. It was a man, tall but not massive, strong yet not armored like others. He wore plain clothes, no heavy plates, no glittering weapon strapped to his side. His name was Darren. He was human. The crowd stared. A wave of murmurs spread across the stands. Humans were known in the galaxy, yes, but not as warriors of renown. They were seen as clever traders, as builders of machines, as thinkers of strange ideas. They were not the kind to walk calmly into a place where death waited at every step. Yet Darren did not look afraid. His face was calm. His eyes moved slowly, studying the ground in front of him. His breath did not shake. He did not rush forward like a fool, nor did he hesitate like a coward. He only walked, steady and even, as though this ground was nothing more than a simple road. On the far side of the arena, a Zoric warlord let out a low growl. His body was covered in thick scaled armor, his horns twisted like black blades. He had walked the killing ground once in his youth and had barely survived. He muttered that the human would not last beyond the first trap. Near him, a Kether matron laughed. Her people were tall and strong, with silver eyes that glowed faintly. She said the human's soft flesh would be cut to ribbons before he reached the halfway mark. Still, there were others who did not laugh. Young warriors of different clans leaned forward, eyes wide. They saw something strange in the man's steps. He did not carry fear in his shoulders. He did not show pride or boast. He walked like he belonged there. And that alone made them silent. Darren's boots pressed against the dusty floor. He paused once, crouched, and ran his fingers over the ground. He felt the faint vibration beneath the stone, as if machines deep below were waking up. He lifted his head slightly, eyes narrowing, and then took another step forward. The arena seemed to breathe in answer. The first trap rose with a hiss of metal. Blades shot upward, shining in the sun, ready to cut anything in their path. The crowd gasped. This was the moment when most warriors panicked, choosing either to leap wildly or freeze in place. But Darren did neither. He simply watched the blades. He studied their rise and fall, their rhythm. Slowly, carefully, he placed his foot on a patch of stone just outside their reach. Then another step, then another, moving in a calm pattern that matched the rhythm of the deadly machines. The blades never touched him. He slipped past them like water flowing around sharp rocks. A hush fell across the arena. Even the Zoric warlord closed his mouth. The Kether matron tilted her head, her laughter gone. Step by step, Darren moved deeper into the killing ground. The crowd waited for him to falter, for him to show fear, for him to break into a run. But he never did. His eyes kept moving, his hands ready, his body steady. He treated the arena not like a monster to fight, but like a puzzle to solve. For the first time in many years, The people watching did not shout. They did not cheer. They only watched. And in their silence, a new thought began to rise. Perhaps this human was not as weak as they had believed. Perhaps he carried something none of them had ever seen. Darren walked on, calm as the wind across open fields, and the killing ground waited to show him its next danger. The crowd that filled the high walls of the arena was restless. The silence that had fallen during Darren's first steps felt heavy, almost unnatural. The killing ground had always been a place of noise, filled with shouts, cries, and the clash of weapons. Now all those voices were quiet, as if the people did not wish to disturb the calm steps of the human below. From the stand of the Zorik clan, the warlord narrowed his eyes. His name was Grill. His massive arms crossed over his chest, the thick scales of his body glimmering under the sun. He had walked the killing ground long ago, and the memory of those traps still burned in his mind. His pride told him that no human could do what he had struggled to survive. Yet as he watched Darren, his pride was shaken. Beside him, the Kether matron named Ryla leaned on her staff of silver bone. Her laughter had faded, replaced by a sharp curiosity. Her people believed in strength above all things. They measured worth in battles won and scars carried. Humans, to her, were weak in body. But weakness did not explain what she saw now. This man walked as though he already knew every step. She found herself leaning forward, her glowing eyes fixed on him. On the other side of the arena, younger warriors whispered to one another. A group of tall Orven soldiers, their skin patterned with bright lines like painted stone, muttered that the human had some secret. A pair of thin Yalri scouts, with insect-like arms and delicate wings, watched with unblinking eyes. Even the proudest among them began to feel something strange, a stirring of respect for a being they had once dismissed. Darren himself did not look up. He did not see the banners or hear the whispers. His focus was only on the ground before him. The arena stretched wide, filled with unseen traps waiting for him. The first set of blades was behind him now, but he knew the killing ground would not rest. The real test was still ahead. As he moved forward, he stopped again. His hand brushed across the dust, his ears catching the faint hum beneath the surface. His sharp gaze noticed the slight shift of sand near a flat stone plate. He understood at once. It was a trigger, waiting for pressure. He stepped around it, letting the sole of his boot touch the safe edge. Nothing stirred. The crowd saw his choice, and another murmur rose. How did he know which steps to avoid? How did he see what others had missed? It was not luck. It was not chance. It was something else entirely. The ground shook suddenly. From hidden vents came a hiss of air, and narrow darts shot upward, sharp enough to pierce through iron. Many warriors had been ended by this test. The darts came in a storm, a swarm of flashing silver. Darren moved low. His eyes followed their pattern, and his body bent at the right time, sliding between their deadly path. He did not fight them. He flowed with them, as if his every step had been measured before they even fired. When the darts ended, he was standing unharmed on the other side. A stunned silence spread again. Grill's jaw tightened. Ryla tapped her staff against the floor, unable to hide her unease. The younger warriors whispered louder now, voices rising with wonder. One Orven soldier muttered, "He walks like he is not tested at all. As if the ground itself obeys him." A Yalri scout replied, "No. He listens to it. He hears what none of us can hear." Above them all, on the highest seat, the overseers of the arena spoke softly among themselves. They were cloaked figures, ancient keepers of the trial. They had seen every warrior from every world step onto the killing ground. Yet even they exchanged puzzled glances. Never had they seen a man walk so calmly, as if he was reading the heart of the arena. Darren's steps never rushed, never slowed without reason. His face remained steady. His breath was measured. To him, the noise of the crowd did not exist. Only the rhythm of the ground mattered. The people watching began to feel something unusual. Fear, yes, but not for the man. They felt fear for what he represented. If a human could walk the killing ground with such ease, what else could humans do? What hidden strength did they carry behind their calm faces? The Zorik warlord leaned closer to Ryla. His deep voice rumbled. He will meet the beasts soon. Let us see if he can stare into their eyes without shaking. The Kether matron's silver gaze did not leave Darren. Perhaps he will. And if he does, then the tales of this day will spread across every world. Darren continued forward, his boots pressing softly against the dust. His eyes never wavered. He walked not like a man trapped in danger, but like a man who had already found the path through. And above him, the clans watched with hearts that no longer felt certain of their strength. The killing ground was not breaking the human. It was breaking their pride. The killing ground had grown quiet, as if the arena itself was waiting. Dust rolled across the broken stone, carried by a dry wind. Darren stood still, his head tilted slightly, listening. His calm eyes searched the floor before him. He knew the first great trial was near. From the stands, the people leaned forward. The Zorik warlord Grull muttered under his breath, his voice low and hard. The blades were nothing. The real test begins now. The Kether matron Ryla tapped her silver staff once against the stone beneath her feet. Yes. The ground has teeth yet to show. Let us see if this human can still walk so steady. Darren crouched low and pressed his hand against the earth. He felt a faint tremor beneath his palm, like the heartbeat of a giant. He stood again and took one step forward. The ground answered at once. With a sudden hiss, rows of tall blades shot upward from hidden slots. Their edges gleamed sharp enough to split stone. They rose and fell in rhythm, cutting through the air with a deadly song. Many warriors had been struck down at this place, sliced before they had time to think. The crowd gasped as the blades surrounded Darren. Yet his face showed no fear. His eyes narrowed, watching their movement. He did not rush, he did not leap. He studied. The blades moved with a rhythm, like the beat of a drum. He waited until he understood the pattern. Then he stepped forward. His boot landed between two blades just as they pulled back. He moved again, his foot finding the next safe space. Slowly, carefully, he slipped through the deadly forest of steel. His hands never shook, his shoulders stayed loose, and his body bent just enough to pass without harm. Gasps rose again when the crowd realized he had cleared the first row. Then another. Then another. He was weaving through death with nothing but calm observation. On the fourth row, one blade suddenly broke rhythm. It shot upward early, fast enough to split the stone beside it. The trap had been made to catch those who relied only on patterns. Many warriors had been lost here, believing they understood, only to be cut down. Darren did not panic. He had been watching not only the blades but the ground beneath them. He saw the faint flicker of light under the soil before the blade moved. He shifted his step at the last second, sliding past it unharmed. His cloak tore slightly at the edge, but his body was untouched. The arena grew still once more. Even the overseers at the high seat whispered among themselves. Grull, the Zorik warlord, clenched his fists. His scaled hand pressed hard against his knee. Impossible. No warrior has passed those blades without blood. Ryla's silver eyes did not leave Darren. Her voice was quiet, but it carried weight. It is not strength that guides him. It is something else. He sees what we do not. The younger warriors in the stands were restless now. An Orven soldier leaned forward, his bright patterned skin glowing faintly in the sun. He does not fight the ground. He listens to it. A Yalri scout's delicate wings shifted with unease. He walks as if the arena itself tells him where to go. Darren reached the last row of blades. He paused for a moment, then stepped through the final gap. The blades hissed behind him, but they never touched him. The human had crossed the first trial. The crowd erupted in noise. Some shouted in anger, others in awe. For many, this was a challenge to their pride. If a human could do this, what did it say about their own warriors? For others, it was hope. Perhaps strength did not only belong to size or armor. Perhaps there was another way. Darren did not look back at them. His eyes were fixed on the ground ahead. He knew the arena was far from finished. The first trial was only the beginning. The dust shifted again. This time, the earth split open in narrow lines, forming cracks that spread in all directions. The ground shook with heavy tremors. From beneath the stone came a growl, low and deep. The audience went silent at once. They knew this sound. The beasts were waking. Gryl's lips curled into a sharp smile. His voice rumbled like thunder. Now we see the truth. Let him face the jaws of the arena's hunters. No calm step will save him now. Ryla's silver gaze stayed on Darren. Perhaps you are right. Or perhaps you will be forced to swallow your words again. The cracks in the earth widened. Dust rose in great clouds. Massive gates slid open at the far end of the killing ground, and shadows moved behind them. The crowd leaned forward, their hearts racing. Darren stood tall, his hand resting lightly at his side. His breathing stayed even. His eyes did not show fear. He knew the beasts were coming, and he knew this trial would be different from the blades. Machines followed patterns. Beasts followed hunger. To survive them, he would need more than patience. He would need to understand their nature. The growl came again, louder now. Shapes began to emerge from the dark gates. The first trial of the blades was behind him. The second trial of the beasts was about to begin. And still, Darren did not waver. The ground shook with heavy force as the great iron gates opened wide. The sound of chains rattled, echoing across the arena. From the darkness behind the gates came a roar that made even the strongest warriors in the stands grip their weapons in memory of past battles. The beasts of the killing ground had been released. Dust swirled as three massive shapes stepped forward. They were hunters bred only for this arena, creatures made to test courage and strength. Their bodies were covered with dark scales, thick enough to resist blades. Their jaws were wide, filled with rows of sharp teeth. Their eyes glowed faintly yellow, like coals burning in a pit. The crowd cheered and shouted, their voices rising once more. Many had waited for this moment. Blades and traps could be solved with skill or luck, but beasts were alive. Beasts could not be tricked so easily. They hunted, they smelled fear, they followed their hunger until their prey was gone. Gryl, the Zaric warlord, leaned forward in his seat. His deep voice rumbled with satisfaction. Now the human will fall. No calm steps will save him from jaws that never rest. Ryla, the Kether matron, did not answer. Her glowing eyes stayed on Darren, watching every detail of his body. She searched for fear, but again she saw none. His face was calm, his hands loose, his posture steady. The first beast roared and charged forward, claws tearing at the stone. Its body moved with the speed of a storm, far faster than its size should have allowed. The ground shook under its weight. The second and third beasts spread wide, circling to trap the human between them. Darren did not draw a weapon, for he had none. Instead, he watched. His eyes followed the way their muscles shifted, the way their claws struck, the way their tails moved for balance. He understood at once that they were not only dangerous, they were also predictable. Hunger made them fierce, but hunger also made them reckless. As the first beast lunged, Darren stepped aside. His boot pressed against a cracked stone plate, and the ground responded. A sharp spike shot upward from beneath the soil, striking the beast in the shoulder. The crowd gasped as the hunter roared in pain, thrashing its body against the trap. Blood darkened its scales. Darren moved again, calm and sure, weaving between the beasts and the hidden traps of the arena. Where another warrior might swing wildly with sword or spear, Darren let the arena itself do the fighting. A second beast leapt, its claws wide, but landed on a section of floor that crumbled into a hidden pit. The creature's roar turned into a cry of fear as it fell into the darkness, snapping at the air. The people in the stands were shouting now, not only in anger but also in disbelief. This was not luck. It was not chance. The human was turning the arena into his ally. The third beast came at him with rage, its jaws wide, its tail lashing the dust into clouds. Darren crouched low, his eyes catching the faint shimmer of metal beneath the ground. He moved at the last second, guiding the beast with his steps. Its heavy body triggered a rising blade, and the sharp metal tore across its leg. The creature stumbled, roaring in pain, its strength weakened. Darren did not strike it down. He only moved aside, letting the arena's traps finish what they had started. The wounded beast limped, confused and wild, until another hidden mechanism opened beneath it. With one final cry, it vanished into the pit. The first beast, wounded but still alive, circled him again. Its yellow eyes burned with fury. The human stood tall, his eyes calm, his breathing steady. The beast lunged once more, but Darren guided his steps with perfect timing. Another spike rose from the ground, and the beast impaled itself upon it. With a last roar, it fell silent. The arena grew quiet again. The three beasts, feared by all, were gone. And the human had not lifted a blade. The crowd was shaken. Some shouted in anger that the arena was tricked. Others whispered in awe, their eyes wide with respect. The young warriors who had doubted humans now looked at one another with new thoughts. Perhaps strength was not only muscle and roar. Perhaps strength could also be patience, wisdom, and calm. Grol's fists were tight, his jaw set hard. He could not believe what he had seen. His pride was cut deeper than any wound. "This is not possible," he growled, though his voice was less certain than before. Ryla leaned back on her seat, her silver eyes thoughtful. "It is possible," she said softly. "And it changes what we know." In the highest seat, the overseers of the arena whispered among themselves. One of them spoke in a voice dry with age. "The human does not fight the arena. He walks with it. He listens, and it obeys." Below them, Darren stood still for a moment. He looked across the field, where dust and silence had replaced the roars of the beasts. His face remained calm, his eyes steady. Then he turned his gaze toward the next part of the killing ground. He knew the trial was far from over. The arena still had more to show, and the greatest challenges still waited ahead. Yet his steps did not waver. The beasts had fallen. The human walked on. The arena floor was covered with dust and broken stone. The bodies of the fallen beasts lay silent, their roars gone, their strength wasted. The crowd had gone quiet again, unsettled by what they had seen. A single human had defeated creatures that entire clans feared, and he had done it without swinging a blade. Darren stood still, his eyes moving slowly across the killing ground. His breathing was steady, his hands rested calmly at his sides. He was not celebrating victory. He knew the arena did not end with beasts. The true heart of the killing ground always lay ahead. High above, the Zorik warlord Grol sat in silence. His scaled hands gripped the arms of his seat so hard that cracks appeared in the stone. His pride burned with shame. He had thought the beasts would tear the human apart, yet here the man stood without fear. Ryla, the Kether matron, lifted her staff and tapped it gently on the floor. Her silver eyes glowed brighter. "He walks still. The ground has teeth left, but he walks as though it is only a road." Whispers ran through the younger warriors. Some spoke of Darren with awe. Some felt envy. All of them felt something they could not deny: respect. The overseers on the high throne gave a signal. The next trial was ready. The sky above the arena darkened. Clouds gathered, thick and heavy. The air grew hot, and sparks of red fire glimmered within the storm. A low hum filled the air, rising until it became a roar of power. Then, with sudden force, fire rained down. Flames struck the stone like falling spears. Heat rolled across the arena, strong enough to blister the skin. The killing ground had entered its storm phase, a stage designed to end those who had survived the traps and beasts. The crowd shouted again, their voices mixing with the thunder. Some cried for the storm to burn the human. Others cheered, hoping he would endure. All eyes followed him. Darren crouched low as the first fire fell. His eyes searched for cover. There was no shield, no weapon, only the broken remains of stone and the wreckage of fallen traps. He moved quickly, his body low to the ground. A wall of collapsed spikes stood nearby. He slipped behind it as fire struck the earth, sending sparks flying. Heat burned the air, but Darren did not falter. He moved from cover to cover, waiting for the right moment before stepping forward again. He did not rush, nor did he freeze. He bent like grass in the wind, never fighting the storm, only flowing with it. Above the fire, the clouds shifted once more. This time, shards of ice began to fall, sharp as blades. The storm was no longer just heat. It was fire and frost together, a deadly mix that few had ever survived. The warriors in the stands gasped as they saw the sharp hail strike the ground, cutting into the stone. A single shard could pierce through flesh as if it were nothing. Yet still the human moved. He covered his head with a broken piece of metal from an earlier trap, letting the shards strike against it. He kept his steps slow and sure, moving when the fire lessened and pausing when the hail grew heavy. To the watchers, it looked like madness. To Darren, it was rhythm. He treated the storm the same way he had treated the blades and the beasts. He studied its timing, listened to its pattern, and walked within its flow. Grl growled low in his chest. No one walks the storm. He should be broken already. Ryla did not look away. And yet he walks. Each step says more than our pride allows. The storm grew wilder. Winds roared across the arena, pulling at Darren's clothes and forcing dust into the air. Fire fell in sheets, ice cut through the wind, and thunder rolled with violent sound. But the human still pressed forward. His body bent when the wind demanded, his steps paused when the storm raged strongest. When the path opened for even a breath of time, he moved ahead again. Minutes felt like hours. The crowd held its breath, waiting for the human to fall. But he did not. Slowly, steadily, he made his way across the deadly storm. At last, the clouds began to part. The fire stopped falling, the ice ceased, the winds grew calm. The storm faded, leaving the arena scarred and smoking. Dust rose in soft waves across the broken ground. Through the haze, a figure stood tall. It was Darren, his clothes burned and torn, his body marked with shallow cuts, but his eyes steady and calm. He had crossed the storm. The crowd was silent. Not one voice spoke. Not one hand moved. They had seen something they could not deny. The human had faced the fire, the frost, and the wind, and he had not broken. Ryla leaned back, her silver gaze soft with wonder. Strength of body is one thing. Strength of spirit is another. This one carries both. Grl said nothing. His pride was wounded deeper than before. He could only stare at the man who walked where even the strongest of his kind had once fallen. Above them, the overseers nodded to one another. The human had passed yet another stage. Only one true trial remained, the shifting labyrinth at the heart of the arena. And as the dust cleared, Darren looked toward it without fear. His journey was not finished. The storm had ended, leaving smoke rising from the broken earth. Fire had scorched the stones, and shards of ice lay scattered across the dust. The crowd was still silent, their eyes fixed on the lone figure who had survived it all. Darren stood steady, his chest rising and falling in calm rhythm. He had endured traps, beasts, and storm, yet his spirit had not bent. But the killing ground was not finished. Every warrior knew the final stage was the hardest of all. It was the labyrinth, a shifting maze of stone walls and grinding machines. Many had entered it, but few had ever found their way out. The walls moved without warning, the floors opened to swallow the careless, and the crushing stones closed in with deadly force. The overseers gave their signal. The ground shook again, and stone slabs began to rise from beneath the arena. Huge walls formed, twisting upward until they towered above the human. The open field vanished. In its place stood a maze of narrow paths, all dark and cold, all ready to move at the will of the arena. The crowd leaned forward, eager yet afraid. The Zorik warlord Grul bared his teeth in a grim smile. Now we shall see. No man can master the labyrinth. It listens to no one. It devours all. Ryla, the Kether matron, tapped her staff softly. Her glowing eyes stayed fixed on Darren. Perhaps. Or perhaps we will see something new again. Darren stepped into the shadow of the first wall. The air inside the labyrinth was cooler, heavy with dust. The passage was narrow, barely wide enough for two men to walk side by side. His hand brushed lightly against the stone, feeling the faint vibration that pulsed through it. He listened closely. The ground was alive here, and its movements would decide his path. Behind him, the gates closed. There was no way back. Only forward. The first corner came quickly. Darren paused, letting his ears pick up the grinding sound deep below. The floor shook faintly. He understood. This path would collapse if he stepped too far. Instead of rushing, he knelt and studied the cracks on the surface. A single narrow line cut across the stone, leading to the left wall. That was the safe direction. He followed it, his steps light and careful. The wall beside him groaned and began to move. Stones shifted, grinding against one another. The path he had just walked closed behind him, trapping him deeper inside. The crowd above gasped as the maze reshaped itself, but Darren did not look back. He had expected it. His eyes stayed forward. At the next turn, the walls began to close in. Heavy slabs of stone moved inward, crushing anything between them. Many warriors in the past had panicked here, running blindly into dead ends. Darren pressed his palm against the wall and listened. He could feel the rhythm of the grinding stones, a slow pattern that matched the hum of the ground beneath. He waited until the walls paused, then stepped through at the single moment when the gap was wide enough. Behind him, the passage closed with a thunderous slam. The watchers in the stands could hardly believe what they saw. A young Orven soldier whispered, "He walks as if the maze itself shows him the way." A Yalri scout's wings quivered. "No. He listens to it. None of us ever listened before." Deeper inside, the labyrinth grew darker. Darren's footsteps echoed softly, each sound carried through the narrow stone halls. The air was thick with dust. From the ceiling above came sudden traps, heavy blocks dropping to crush the careless. Darren's eyes caught the faint dust drifting before they fell, and he moved aside each time, his steps precise. The maze shifted again. Walls slid sideways, twisting paths into new shapes. The crowd above could see the full layout from their high seats, but Darren could not. Still, he did not rush. He kept track of each turn in his mind, building a map within his thoughts. Every vibration, every grinding sound, told him where the next wall would move. At last, the ground began to shake harder. The final chamber of the labyrinth was near. Darren stepped into a wide space where the floor itself started to shift, tilting and rolling like waves. Sharp spikes rose from hidden slots, while heavy blocks slid from the ceiling above. The crowd gasped as the deadly heart of the labyrinth revealed itself. Few had ever stood there. None had ever survived long. Grul leaned forward, his deep voice heavy with pride. Now the human ends. No one can walk through the storm of stone. But Darren did not look afraid. His eyes followed the movement, watching the floor tilt and the spikes rise. He moved with perfect timing, balancing his steps as though walking on a living creature's back. When the blocks dropped, he was already gone from their path. When the spikes rose, his foot landed on the only safe stone between them. Step by step, he crossed the chaos. His movements were not wild or desperate. They were calm, flowing, almost graceful. The labyrinth roared with its full power, yet he walked through as if he had already known the way. The final wall opened slowly. Light poured into the dark chamber. Darren stepped forward, out of the shifting maze, into the open air once more. The labyrinth closed behind him with a thunderous crash, but he was already free. The arena was silent. Warriors from every clan stared in disbelief. The human had done what none before him had achieved. He had walked through the final trap and reached the center of the killing ground. Ryla's silver eyes glowed brighter than ever. He does not fight the ground. He understands it. Grul's scaled hands shook with anger, but his voice failed him. No denial could hide what all had seen. Darren stood tall in the center, his calm face unchanged. He had reached the heart of the killing ground. And still, he had not wavered. The arena stood in silence. The labyrinth had closed behind Darren with a heavy crash, but no one spoke. The human stood at the very center of the killing ground, untouched, his calm face glowing in the harsh light. For a long moment, the crowd of warriors did not know how to react. They had seen beasts defeated, storms endured, and traps outwitted, but never had they seen a being walk through the entire killing ground without panic. Fear had always ruled here, yet Darren had shown no fear at all. Finally, the warlord Grul rose from his seat. His scaled body towered over those beside him, and his voice thundered through the arena. The human has survived. But survival does not mean mastery. He has walked the path, yes, but he cannot teach us what it means. The crowd stirred, unsure of what to believe. Many eyes turned toward the matron Ryla, who still leaned on her glowing staff. She lifted her voice softly, yet every ear could hear. He has already taught us. Not through words, but through his steps. The ground opened again, forming a raised platform where Darren could stand above all. Slowly, he climbed onto it. His steady gaze swept over the countless faces watching him. He was not a warlord, not a sorcerer, not a being of great size or strength. He was only a man. Yet at that moment, all warriors waited for his voice. Darren spoke simply. The killing ground is not your enemy. It is only a mirror. It shows you your fear. And fear is what destroys you. His words echoed across the stone walls. Many warriors frowned, confused. Others lowered their eyes, remembering their own battles with the arena. He continued, his voice calm and even. You run when the walls close. You fight when the beasts attack. You rage against the storm. But you do not listen. You do not feel. That is why the killing ground defeats you. Not because it is stronger, but because you give it your fear. The crowd whispered among themselves. Some still doubted. Grul growled low, his pride refusing to yield. You claim fear is the weakness. But what replaces it? Do you think calmness alone can break stone? Do you think stillness can stop a beast? Darren looked directly at him. His answer was steady. No. Calmness does not stop the stone. But it lets you see the path between them. Calmness does not strike down the beast. But it lets you strike at the right moment. Fear blinds. Calmness clears. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Ryla smiled faintly, her silver eyes glowing brighter. She struck her staff once on the ground. The truth stands before you. We came to watch a man break, but instead we saw him teach us how not to break. A young warrior from the Orven clan rose suddenly, his voice trembling. When I entered the killing ground, I ran at the first roar. I fell because I feared. He did not run. He listened. He walked. That is why he stands there now. One by one, others began to nod. The lesson had reached them, though slowly. They had trained for strength, for speed, for power. But none had trained for calm. Grill's claws dug into the stone beside him. He could not deny what the others had seen, yet his pride burned. And what then, human? Do you claim to be greater than all clans? Do you wish to rule us with this calmness of yours? Darren shook his head. I do not wish to rule. I only wish to show. Strength without calmness is like a blade without a hand to guide it. Power without thought destroys its own master. Calmness is not my gift alone. It can be yours, if you choose it. The words hung in the air. No challenge remained in them, only truth. Slowly, the warriors began to rise, not in defiance but in respect. Their weapons struck the stone in rhythm, a sound that spread across the arena. It was not the roar of battle. It was acknowledgement. Ryla lifted her staff once more. The killing ground has tested many. Today, it has done more. Today, it has given us a teacher. The crowd roared not in anger, not in fear, but in unity. For the first time, the killing ground had not simply claimed lives. It had given meaning. Darren stood quietly as the sound rolled over him. He did not raise his arms in triumph, nor did he boast. His calm face remained the same as when he had first stepped into the deadly field. The warriors saw this and understood. His strength was not in victory, but in steadiness. Later, when the arena emptied and the sun began to set, Ryla approached him. Her voice was soft, carrying both wisdom and wonder. You have changed the way they see the killing ground. Perhaps you have changed more than that. Perhaps you have changed the way they see themselves. Darren looked at the fading light and answered with the same calmness that had carried him through. It was never the ground that needed to change. Only the hearts that walked it. And with those words, the legend of the human who walked the killing ground was sealed. Not as a conqueror, not as a ruler, but as a reminder that courage is not the absence of danger, but the presence of calm in the face of it.